when you're doing tinctures. I don't know if we're going to have time to do the Perry Salve oil. If we don't, I'll still send you home with some of that. But one of the things you use is beeswax, and beeswax, if you can get it from a local beekeeper, that's great. So I was able to get these from a beekeeping shop. They come in bars. Dr. Jones used to sell blocks of beeswax, and so what I did is I melted my beeswax down in a double boiler, and I found this at the DI, and then my husband marked them for me, and then when I melted, I just poured it in. It made these in a little Teflon cookie sheet, and it makes these nice little bars. Because if you've ever tried grating beeswax, it's really hard. It's just hard to grate it. So you can sometimes find it like this, but we just melted our own. So you can get it like this or like this, or you can do the beeswax pearls. And these are really easy. And there's a company, I have a reference for these guys. They come in yellow and white. The color doesn't matter. It does change the color of your salve if you care about that. It's a little darker if you use the yellow beeswax. But there's a company that's very inexpensive, cheaper than beekeepers, and it's called Bulk Apothecary. And I have a whole list of resources for you guys of like where I got all my information from, quotes, different things like that, and then all the different places that you can get the equipment that you need. Cheap little funnels when you're pouring off your tinctures, like if you're doing something like this, you want to use this kind of funnel. I have an extra one that's plastic. I don't care for it too much just because, I don't know, just because it stains, I don't know. And then I've got this one. And then I also have a nice stainless steel one that I left at home with my husband because he's still doing some canning for us. And then I use a Pyrex jar. These are really nifty. I got these at Smith & Edwards. These are really good. So when you're pouring off, let's say you got a big bottle of tincture now, you need to put it in a smaller bottle like this. You just stick it like that, and then you just pour your tincture in. Your other funnels are a little bit too big, and sometimes they just fit flat on the top, and they don't go actually inside. So these work really well for that. I got my bottles from a company called Industrial Container in Salt Lake City. And it's cheaper if you buy like a case of everything, and that's where I got the 4-ounce droppers and the bottles for what you guys are going to be doing today. You go in a health food store, they're like $2 or $3 for just one bottle, and then the droppers, like, this is ridiculous. So it's just cheapest to go that way. I know a couple people, they order online from different companies and have their stuff sent to them. I just do everything in cash. I don't even own a credit card, so I have to go to Salt Lake, but I like looking at bottles, so it's fun. And they sell all kinds of jars, like these they sell this kind of stuff, but I was able to get these cheaper I got these at Smith & Edwards and Price Container. And then they sell these kind of jars too, all different sizes. So, and it's, like I said, it's cheaper if you buy them bulk. And there's no discount on your vodka, whether you buy one bottle or you buy a whole case, the price is the same. Get the cheapest. You need something that's 80 proof to do your tinctures with. And they vary in price, but you either do the Bartons or the Pop-Off, and it runs about between $11 and $12 for a bottle that size. Let's see. We already covered the vinegar. All right, I think that's it. Does anybody have any questions before we actually get started?
I have a suggestion.
Sure.
I have a friend who has an allergy to nightshades, so she can't use vodka. She uses rum.
Oh, and that's great.
Right.
And you can do this, and you can do that with brandy too.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more expensive.
Yes.
But if it's just for her, then she could get her own, so
Right.
no big deal. That's good to know. I was going to tell you something else. Oh, and there's been some debate about using vodka for everything. Your resinous, I've talked with several herbalists that make their own medicine. When you're working with things that are resinous, it's really hard to get the medicine out. So in that case, you would use Everclear, which is, I forgot what's
Right.
it's really high.
It's
Yeah.
fireproof, yeah.
Yeah, it's like really high, and it's a little bit on the expensive side. Thank goodness I
Yeah.
don't use a lot. So I use that for my curly cup gum weed, and I also use that for. I took a class from Dr. Jones many years ago, and he said you need to use that for Mormon tea as well. And Mormon tea is interesting because if you look, it has little nodules that they're copper colored, and it's because it goes deep down into the ground. It pulls all the minerals out of the ground into the plant. Now, it does have ephedra, and people get weirded out about that. But it's not the same as there's another tea, it's called Mahang, Mahang, thank you. And that one has like real true ephedra. It's not, so what you're getting in Mormon tea is not as strong as
Plus, it's
that
the
brand.
whole plant, and so it's balanced, and so
Right.
it's not going to hurt.
Right. Now they started having a shortage on bottles. I could not get any more 32-ounce bottles. So my husband drinks a lot of kombucha. So guess what?
Right.
Save your amber bottles and the caps. And these are the same exact caps on the kombucha bottles are the same ones that I buy from an industrial container. But now we get them free, and it's really hard to get the labels off, so you have to scrub like crazy. But if you're tight on money, this would work really, really good. You could put your tinctures in here.
Can you
So.
describe what resins means?
It's anything that's a thick, sticky, gummy substance. And you have that in your curly cup gumweed. I don't know what is in the Mormon tea. I would have to ask Dr. Jones about that, but he did for some. I don't know if it's because it's brittle and it's like a twig. It's not like a leaf. It would be really hard to get medicine out of Mormon tea. So I just don't know why he suggested that. But yeah, and a lot of your plant books, they're going to tell you if they're resinous, and you can tell by looking at or even touching them. If they feel sticky, chances are really good that you're going to need to use Everclear for those. And something Dr. Jones taught us is really cool. If you ever look at some plants and you're looking in your book and it gives you the Latin word, and it's like comfrey is symptom officinale, or some books say officinalis. If it says officinale, that means it is for sure medicine, no question about it. And I've learned since then that everything is medicine, but those are specifically medicinal plants if they have the word in the Latin officinale at the end. And another good substitute for comfrey, if you're not growing it in your yard. I don't know about here in Idaho. Have you ever seen it in the hills? Comfrey? I never have.
Seen comfrey in the hills. I see it in everybody's yards.
Yeah. However, I just found from this gal I did a plant walk with this spring, and I didn't know that hound's tongue is everywhere. And hound's tongue has the pretty little flowers, and it has the little stickies you come out and they stick. That has all the same exact medicinal properties that comfrey has. So if you couldn't get comfrey, you could use hound's tongue. And the guy who invented Velcro went on a nature walk, and this stuff was sticking to his pants, and he came up with the patent for Velcro just from doing a nature walk with hound's tongue. So that's just a little.
This isn't it burdock that has the other.
Oh, they do too.
Yeah.
But they're round. They're about this big, and they're kind of spiked. But on the hound's tongue, they're real small, and they just
rectangular, right?
no, they're more oval shaped. Yeah, but they're hard, and it forbid if you get them on your socks at all. You're sitting there with tweezers trying to pull them out. Yes, very tight. Because it goes from flower to seed, and it has pretty little flowers on it in the spring, and then it goes to seed, and it dries up, and then it just sticks to everything. So, anyway, all right. So, when you get ready to start making a tincture, you guys, this is so hard. You're gonna we'll do your jars right over here, and then you're gonna eyeball. So there's two methods to making medicine. One's called folk medicine, and the other one is called measurement medicine. So some people are really anal, and they want to get out their digital scale, and they're going to put their stuff on the scale, and they want to get 4 ounces and all that. Okay, fine. I've done that a couple of times. Like, this is really dumb. So I just eyeball, and the eyeballing on it is pretty simple. It's whatever jar you're using. If you're using a jar this size, fill it to about a quarter of a cup. This is folk medicine. About a quarter of the way up the container. And then the rest you're gonna fill with alcohol.
Unless you're using fresh, then you pretty much fill it all the way up.
And I don't, and I'll tell you what, you're right. And I don't do fresh because I'm so afraid of it going bad, because it will go bad. If it's not completely immersed, I've had some people that have had really good luck with it, but I just go ahead and just dry my, because I love smelling them anyway, and I love looking at them. I'm a very visual and tactile, so I like looking at the dry herbs, and then I dry them. But yes, you're right, you can do it. And you've just got to make sure that it's covered. And then what you do is you're going to fill out a quarter of a cup. You're going to take a piece of masking tape and you're going to put what you just put in the jar and the date. And the reason you want to do that is you don't be a dummy like me. When I first started doing this, I did like 3 or 4 and I thought, oh, I was just being very efficient. So I just get everything lined up, put my herbs in. I'm like, oh. And if you don't know how to recognize them right away, sometimes they look the same. So now you're like, I don't know what I just put in that jar. So it's a guessing game. So I've just learned it's a little bit slower. Do one. If you're going to do a whole bunch of tinctures, only do one at a time. So like my motherwort, I grow up in my yard. I dry it. I put it in a jar. Then when I get ready to make a tincture, I put it in a jar like this, except I do a full quart. And I'll put a quarter of the jar full and then fill the rest the shoulder up here. Now there's one herb that I know, I think, was it the nettle? Nettle really absorbs a lot of alcohol. So you can still do your quarter cup and then you're gonna have your alcohol like up to here, and you might not have enough room in there. So you're not gonna get as much tincture out of this as you will like angelica root or something. Most of them are pretty standard though. A quarter of whatever container you're using, and then fill the rest with alcohol. Then you're going to put a date on it and you're going to leave it for at least 2 weeks. Now some people like to do it with the moon cycles and all that other kind of stuff. I have a friend of mine, that's how she does all hers. I don't. I just don't. And maybe I need to. I don't know. She thinks the medicine's more powerful. And if it is and that works for you, that's awesome. That's great.
Does that mean you bottle it on a full moon?
I don't know.
She doesn't know.
Usually it means that you would leave it for instead of just 2 weeks, you leave it for a full moon cycle.
Because I think it means also
So,
You can do it on the new moon.
So you can do it on the full moon.
Yeah, sometimes you do it. There's a certain time of the month that,
So it's like
yeah.
all the way.
And I don't. I just go out there and harvest it, and when it's ready, I just do it. And I don't think there's any right or wrong about it. And maybe the medicine is more powerful that way. I don't know. I don't
You
know.
can just ask the plant.
Yeah.
There you go. Just ask the plant. That's exactly right. The other thing I was going to tell you, you can get kind of a little bit of a buzz when you get your medicine off and you're squeezing your herbs out. So you might want to wear rubber gloves because you absorb that alcohol through your skin. I've never ever experienced that, but I know other people that are very sensitive to alcohol. They go, oh my gosh, I had to go lay down. I mean, I did 2 tinctures and I just got this buzz. So that's why the gloves. I haven't had that.
Just as likely that you're inhaling it than that you're absorbing it.
Maybe, yeah, and it's never bothered me. However, I will. Yeah, there you go. However, I will tell you, if you're doing a cayenne tincture, you for sure want to wear gloves because it will burn. It'll burn your hands so bad. Like my husband, I came home from work and he goes, oh baby, he showed me his hands. He goes, look how red they are. I said, what'd you do? And he goes, well, I strained off that cayenne tincture and it like really burned my hands. I go, you dummy, you're supposed to wear gloves. But it only takes one time, right? And then you get it figured out. So.
Hey Faye, I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are using fresh herbs, would that affect how long you want it to leave it to steep?
Yes, in that you don't want to let it go as long. So it would be the same amount of time, but like when it's the dry herb, you can just leave it.
Right.
But when it's the fresh herb, it can actually mold because
Right, you can't just leave it forever.
Right.
Yeah, if the herb gets to it or the herb gets above the liquid, yeah, she's absolutely right. And I was going to, I have a handout for you guys. It's called Parturient Herbs. So those are all these other herbs that are used in labor and delivery. If you didn't want to do these 8 or you couldn't get them, but you had to use other herbs. I combined a list from several different books, several different midwives and all that, and put that together in a list for you. Now, one of the things that the Native Americans used to help expel the placenta and to help with hemorrhaging was called scrub oak galls. And I'm like, what the heck is that? I just learned this just this summer. So I brought one to show you. And they would, so there's scrub oak, and some of them have, an insect makes these little galls, and then they come, and then they bore a hole in there, and they plant that, like, it's like their little home.
Can actually be huge.
Where have you seen those at?
In Northern California.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh,
have
wow,
oak
that's
trees
cool.
everywhere, but like, yeah, they can be.
Yeah, and they say
really
they're on
large.
oak. We don't have a lot of oak down there, but these are the
haven't
only
seen
ones.
any
And
oak
so
up
what
here.
the Native Americans see, you can see on the front and the back. I was out doing I'll have to go out and do a nature walk, so I'm just investigating plants, and I'm like, I wonder if those are galls. Oak, scrub oak galls, Galls. And then what the Native Americans would do with that is they would just use something like a mortar and pestle, smash it, make a powder out of it.
The white things.
Yeah, just the white things, and then that is good for hemorrhaging, and it's good to help deliver. That's what the Native Americans used to deliver the placenta if it was
So you
hung
just
up a
put it
little
in
too long.
mom's mouth.
Yep. And then they're good for hemorrhoids too. And so they'd make a paste and put that on the mom's bottom. I had really, really bad hemorrhoids after my daughter, and my midwife suggested using potato peels, and that did not work. So like I said, here again, it was one of those things that didn't work. And then she goes, okay, try garlic. And I did. I didn't mince it up. I left it whole.
Yeah,
And
little
then I just
slices.
poke holes in it with a fork to start getting the juices out of it.
Garlic.
And then I put a little Vaseline on the tip. And I'm here to tell you right now, that burned so bad for about 30 seconds, and then it was nice and warm, and it felt delightful. I looked like I had a grape cluster on my bottom. I could not even lay down. It was awful, just awful. And then I had a really great naturopath chiropractic doctor that showed me an exercise to do, leaning backward up against a wall and squeezing your buttocks together with using the garlic, and then that pushes the blood out of because it's a varicose vein on your bottom.
Right.
And that squeezes the blood out. And I'm here to tell you, within 24 hours, I was like, oh man, this is awesome. It's just great. It worked really good. So that's just for like birthing situations. All right, so now we're ready to start. And if you guys know what you want to do, we'll just go ahead and start, and we can do it right over here.
Go ahead.